Welcome to MotoGP in 9 minutes. Here is what you need to know today. Marc Marquez spent the entire 2026 season riding with a screw in his shoulder pressing directly against his radial nerve, sending lightning bolt pain through his right arm every single lap, and almost nobody knew. He crashed in Indonesia last October, and that impact damaged old metalwork already in his shoulder from previous surgeries. One of those screws was touching his nerve. He covered it up completely, physically with tape and sleeves, metaphorically with sheer force of will. He walked into every press conference, smiled at every camera, and let the paddock debate his setup while his body was screaming. The reigning world champion described his physical descent across a single race weekend in 3 words: worse and worse and worse. Those first 3 laps of every race were what he called a personal hell, where his body temperature hadn't caught up yet, and the pain was at its absolute worst. He was riding with 1.5 hands for better part of the entire season. The visual tell was there if you knew what to look for. Elbow up means protection. Elbow down means confidence and no pain. Go back and watch the footage from every race, every sprint, every qualifying lap. Watch his right elbow. That elbow was screaming what his mouth refused to say. He eventually revealed losing body temperature on the grid meant effectively warming up a second time when the lights went out. Those 3 opening laps against Jorge Martin, against Pecco Bagnaia, against the entire field were absolute agony. His body temperature hadn't caught up, his nerve was on fire, and he was in last place on his own pain scale. He still scored points. He still found pace. He won a sprint race in Brazil in the middle of all this. That is not a rider managing pain. That is a man bending physics with pure psychotic determination. Moving on to the toll this season has taken on him physically. Marquez has endured an enormous amount of punishment in his pursuit of greatness. But the real version is that this man has been reconstructed surgically more times than most people change careers. Every time they put him back together, he gets on the bike and finds a new limit to push past. The double surgery on his right foot from Le Mans and his right shoulder that had been planned before the foot even broke was confirmed as successful. But the damage to his 2026 championship campaign was already terminal. He now sits 85 points behind the championship leader, and whether he even makes Mugello is uncertain. The title is gone. The season that was supposed to be his coronation lap became a medical report filed in slow motion. This is a season that will be remembered not as a championship, but as a documentation of what human beings will absorb in the name of something they refuse to let go. Marquez's season is war, and war does not ask if you are ready. War does not wait for the physio to clear you. War comes at first corner at 200 km/h with a screw touching your nerve and 3 laps of lightning in your shoulder before your blood even runs warm. That is the difference between courage we recognize from daily life and something closer to mythology. Next up is Pecco Bagnaia and what he went through at the Catalan Grand Prix, because it deserves to be told and it deserves its flowers. The restart at Circuit de Catalunya was chaos before it even began properly. First corner, first second, Zarco clips Marini's rear, turns into a missile, and Bagnaia has nowhere to go. 3 riders launched into the gravel at race speed. All 3 walked away, which by itself is a miracle. But Pecco stayed. He stood in that gravel with Johan Zarco with a wrist that would later tell a very specific story, and he did not leave until the marshals came. The circuit officials called his behavior exemplary. In this paddock, in this sport, in this era, that matters. He was transparent, human, honest about the damage. After the medical center cleared him, private Ducati footage shot in the garage showed Bagnaia walking back in, looking at his engineers with that exhausted Italian calm, and saying, "I cannot move a thing." For words. One hand that would not respond. And then he got back on the bike. He finished the race. He crossed the line 5th, which became 4th when Ogura got penalized for taking out Acosta on the final lap, which became 3rd when Joan Mir lost his podium to a tight tire pressure penalty. Bagnaia's first podium of 2026, earned with a hand that could not clap properly when they gave him the trophy. The footage shows an engineer watching him try to celebrate. He cannot even move, poor Pecco. He later admitted he felt dizzy after the crash. He admitted he probably should have stopped. Switching gears now to what comes next for Bagnaia and what this injury means for his championship hopes. He said he needs to check the wrist again before Mugello because something still does not feel right. He said he will do physiotherapy, back off training, try not to make it worse. He said he needs to be at 100% for Mugello because of how physically demanding that circuit is. That is Pecco, transparent, human, honest about the damage and honest about what it demands to keep going. But there is an important line we need to draw here between Pecco's injury and what Marquez endured all season. We understand Pecco. We process Pecco. He crashed. He got hurt. He pushed through. He told us about it. He won a podium. He went to physio. That is the kind of courage we can hold in our hands and look at clearly. It has edges, and it has weight, and it fits inside a human story. Marquez does not fit inside a human story. What Marquez was doing this season, riding an entire campaign, knowing he needed shoulder surgery, knowing one of his own screws was attacking his radial nerve, knowing the championship was slipping away, and still dragging that Ducati to the front on raw competitive instinct alone, that is not the same category. That is something closer to mythology, something that happens in the parts of human experience where the brain stops negotiating with the body and the body simply submits to an idea. Now let us talk about the championship picture and what these injuries mean for the title race. The toll injuries take on a rider is unpredictable, and the 2026 season shows us just how devastating that toll can be. Marquez has endured enormous punishment in his pursuit of greatness. The sanitized version is that he has been reconstructed surgically many times. The real version is that this man has been rebuilt more times than most people change careers, and every time they put him back together, he gets on the bike and finds a new limit to push past. Bagnaia's wrist is pain. Marquez's season is war. And war does not ask if you are ready. War does not wait for the physio to clear you. War comes at first corner at 200 km/h with a screw touching your nerve and 3 laps of lightning in your shoulder before your blood even runs warm. The championship is not decided by who is healthiest. It is decided by who is willing to hurt the most and still keep pushing. That willingness to sacrifice everything is what separates good riders from great ones. Both of these men have shown they possess it, even when it costs them everything. Finally, here is what matters most as we look ahead. The 2026 season is not a championship story. It is a documentation of what human beings will absorb in the name of something they refuse to let go. Bagnaia cannot move his hand, and he is still hunting podiums. Marquez is under the knife for the second time in months, and he will be back, probably before he should be, definitely before anyone would advise, absolutely before his body agrees. Because that is who these men are. In this sport, that is the only currency that actually matters. Giving up is a number. Putting yourself at 100% is a decision, and some men make it every single weekend with whatever pieces of themselves are still left. The riders will continue to suffer because they have no other choice. This is not about medals or points or titles anymore. This is about what it means to push past every limit your body sets and keep pushing anyway. That is the real story of 2026, and it is written in blood and determination and the absolute refusal to quit. That is your MotoGP news for today. See you tomorrow, same place, same time.